could be the most important video that you watch in finance this year because a potential 2008 is brewing and it just started. Let's just put it this way. There's a bank called Silicon Valley Bank that is now having trouble helping you withdraw your money. That's because they're suffering from what's known as a bank run. Everybody's trying to get their money out of small banks, and you should too. I'm not trying to cause panic. I'm trying to prevent you from losing access to your capital. Be very careful because there are dirty things happening on balance sheets, and you already have panicked investors like Bill Ackman begging the government to bail out the banks that are not letting people get their money out of the banks right now. That's scary because the banks have already squandered that money. There's a reason why Silicon Valley Bank dropped 45% in one day, and even though the stock is suspended right now, is likely to end today down another 50%. This is despite the fact that people like Jim Cramer told us everything is fine at Silicon Valley Bank.
On the developing and important story around Silicon Valley Bank, the company facing what can only be described as a bank run. This one day after another high-tech bank, Silvergate Capital, said it was liquidating. There's some fast-moving headlines around the story. Let's get now more with CNBC's Deirdre Bosa, who's in San Francisco, been speaking with investors. Deirdre.
Brian, it is all that anyone here can talk about. I've had so many discussions. I spoke to one investor, who's very well connected, that said that he's received calls from no less than 15 founders who have been asking him if they should take their money out of Silicon Valley Bank. And he's saying, yes, if you can. Now, what's going on here? Let me put this in context, because Silicon Valley Bank, it is really difficult to overstate how important it is to the Bay Area, to the tech ecosystem. Approximately half of all venture capital investment dollars in the economy, they eventually flow back through Silicon Valley Bank in deposits. So this is crucial. And now you have a moment where, you said it, Brian, a lot of people here don't want to use those words bank run, but it certainly looks like it, with more and more founders coming out and saying that maybe they should be pulling out their money. And what I'm hearing is that even if the capital structure, even if the capital requirements look good, and they do at Silicon Valley Bank, no one wants to be the last one to panic. No one wants to be the last one out. So that is the situation we're in, Brian. This is still unfolding, and the CEO earlier today tried to stem these losses. He actually had to get onto a phone call with some of the clients and tell them, stay calm. It's not a great thing when you're hearing that from a bank CEO.
Yeah, I heard that, and I thought about Kevin Bacon in Animal House when he said, stay calm, and everybody kind of runs over and he's left on the ground. This is kind of a classic bank run. To your point, Deirdre, right? I mean, people say, well, I better get in line ahead of this next guy. Is there anybody that you're talking to who is saying it's going to be all right, coming out in defense of this company, which may not be a household name for a lot of our last call viewers, but is a critically important bank in California, particularly in the Bay Area, for investors?
It is the backbone of the tech industry here. I cannot tell you how important that is to many of the startup and the VC ecosystem and investors here. So there are some supporters coming out and saying, listen, Silicon Valley Bank supported you, your small startup, you as an entrepreneur, when you needed it. Now is the time to support them. It's not helping a whole lot because it comes down to dollars and cents. And like we talked about, you don't want to be the last one to get your money out. There are a lot of questions about what the CEO, Greg Becker, should do now. We talked to him a few weeks ago on Tech Check, and he said actually that the rate of cash burn from startups, he expected it to ease in the second half of the year, but he expected it to get worse in the first half, and that's exactly what he's seeing, and that's what led to this mess, is that they were suffering a higher cash burn than expected. Yeah. They had to sell some of their assets at a loss, and now here's what you're seeing with the deposits.
Yeah, it's one of these stories that Silicon Valley Bank is not a household name for most of our viewers. It's West Coast based, but to your point, critically important, in one of the biggest industries in the world. Deirdre Bosa.
Been hit hard by mass layoffs in recent months, and now they're. We do have some breaking news. Bank regulators have seized Silicon Valley Bank in the largest bank failure since the Great Recession back in 2008. SVB is, as it's known, is relatively unknown outside of Silicon Valley. It lends to high-risk tech startups that have recently been hurt by the higher interest rates, the dwindling venture capital. Trading of the bank shares have halted this morning before markets even opened after the stock fell by double digits in pre-market trading. It was after yesterday's 60% drop. And Silicon Valley